Hello friends, welcome to the higher module on institutional management for entrepreneurship. This module has got 8 units and this is the very first unit which is on entrepreneurial competency mapping and business opportunity identification. In this video we shall be covering the very first part of this specific unit. In fact, this unit has got 3 videos, 3 parts, and this is the very first part or the very first video. My name is Dr. Suresh Kumar Tameja. I am working as a professor and head of the Department of Entrepreneurship Development and Industrial Coordination at NITR, which is National Institute of Technical Teachers Training and Research, Chandigarh. The contents of my presentation, there is a brief about the entrepreneur, like who is an entrepreneur and what is entrepreneurship. Then we shall discuss the need for entrepreneurship promotion, and then we will discuss the startup and the stand up India schemes. You see, entrepreneurship in a broader sense can be described as a creative and innovative response to the environment. An entrepreneur is an innovator who introduces something new into the economy. It could be a new method of production, a new product, a new service, or a new market which has been so far unexploited, and other similar innovations. Now, the question is, who is an entrepreneur? I will take only 2 definitions which are not from the books. One is by an international organization and one is by a practicing entrepreneur. This definition of an entrepreneur is by the ILO, which is International Labour Organization. It says entrepreneurs are people who have the ability to see and evaluate business opportunities. So, they have that ability or they have the capability to see, to sense, to scan the business opportunity. So, they have that third eye or the sixth sense to see an opportunity which normally people are not able to see. Then gather the necessary resources to establish the venture. So, once they have seen the opportunity, once they have evaluated the opportunity, so the second step is to collect the resources. The resources are man, material, machinery, money, etc. So, they collect all the resources and then they initiate the action to start the business. Entrepreneurs are action oriented, achievement motivated people who take risks to achieve the goals. So, these are the sort of competencies of an entrepreneur by the International Labour Organization. This is a very beautiful definition of an entrepreneur by Lord Swaraj, who is basically an Indian. He is from Punjab, from Jalandhar district, and then he shifted to UK, and right now he is a very big business magnate over there. He says, I am often asked how to define an entrepreneur. My first answer is anyone who has the 5 qualities. First is motivation beyond the monetary incentives. So, there is a motivation which is beyond earning the money. So, earning the money is not the only motto. Of course, this is one of the motto, that this is a prime motto, but that is not the only motto. There is something which is beyond earning the money. You see, when we talk of big businessmen, we talk of like Tatas or Ambanis or Adanis or Birlas, now they have tons and tons of money, and they do not need the money to survive. Their next 7 generations they can always go with this present money, but still those people are working. So, there is an external motivation which is like generating employment for the people or contributing towards the country's economic development. So, there are many other motivations which are beyond the monetary incentives only. Second is the ability to do that work which one does not like as effectively as the work one likes. You see, when we start a business, there are many things which we have to do. In fact, if you are a first generation entrepreneur, this is a very first time you are starting an enterprise, and you being a very small scale entrepreneur, you have very limited resources, you cannot hire a lot of people. So, you have to do a lot of things. There are many things like marketing is there, production is there, financing is there, personnel is there, HR is there, a lot of things are there. Now, some things you like, some things you may not like, but since it is your business, it is your baby, you have to do all those things, at least in the very beginning. So, if you can do those things which you do not like as effectively or as good as the things which you like, you can be a better entrepreneur. Third is needs little sleep and takes a few holidays, because once you start a business, it is very hard during the initial 3 to 5 years. Like when normally we say for the very first 3 years or approximately 1000 days, you have to work very hard. So, sometimes 20 hours in a day, sometimes 18 hours in a day, 22 hours in a day. So, you have to really work very hard. So, if you are very fond of taking sleep and going for vacations very frequently, then maybe this is not your cup of tea. Fourth is never worries about a pension. You see, when we talk of the pension, the very word pension, it shows a security orientation. That means your frame of mind is basically security oriented, but these people, these entrepreneurs, they are not security oriented. They take risk. Of course, they take a very calculated risk, a very moderate risk, a very intelligent risk, but they take risk. So, they are not security oriented. So, that is why we say that he should not worry about the pension. And the fifth is not afraid to lower one's standard of living, because there are many ups and downs in a business. Sometimes you are right at the very top, sometimes you have nothing left. So, if you can survive all those scenarios, you can be a very good entrepreneur. Now, let us talk of the types of entrepreneurs. There are mainly 5 types of entrepreneurs. First is the innovative entrepreneurs. Such entrepreneurs, they introduce new goods or new services or new methods of production, or discover new markets, or reorganize the enterprise. So, they do something new, something innovative which has not been done earlier. So, they are known as the innovative entrepreneurs. The second is the social entrepreneurs. In fact, this is a relatively new concept, social entrepreneurs. A social entrepreneur is someone who recognizes a social problem and uses entrepreneurial principles to organize, create and manage a business venture to make social change. So, basically they look for the problems in the society has a lot of problems. So, they want to solve those problems. So, they set up a business to solve those problems. So, the primary purpose of setting up a business is not to earn the money, but it is to solve the societal problems. The money will come by default. So, they are known as the social entrepreneurs. The next is the imitative or the adoptive entrepreneurs. Such entrepreneurs do not innovate, they just copy the technology or the technique of others. Next is the Fabian entrepreneurs. Such entrepreneurs do not want to change anything in their enterprise. They change only when there is a serious threat to the very existence of the enterprise. And the last is the drone entrepreneurs. Such entrepreneurs are very conservative and they will not change even if they have to suffer the losses or even close down the business. So, these are the 5 types of entrepreneurs. We shall discuss only the first 2, that is the innovative and the social entrepreneurs. This is Mr. Joseph Schumpeter, he is known as the father of entrepreneurship. He says an entrepreneur is an innovator who implements the change within the markets through carrying out of new combinations. So, his main focus is on the innovation. He says it is basically the innovation which distinguishes an entrepreneur from a businessman. And in the same series we have now known as the technopreneurs, the technical entrepreneurs, the people who are either technically qualified or technically experienced. While an entrepreneur is a person who identifies an opportunity, converts it into a product or a service, makes profit and builds a successful business, a technopreneur starts out with nothing, with just an idea. So, mainly he gets an idea from the society, from the community, and then from there he builds up his business. He defies existing practices and systems and thinks of doing things differently. He creates a product or a solution that uses technology to change the way something has been done traditionally. For example, the founders of Uber thought means they got an idea of a different way to call a cab. So, they use the power of technology by building a GPS integrated app and completely change the dynamics of the cab industry. So, technopreneurship generally begins with the customer's experience and works backwards to arrive at the technology to provide a better customer experience. Instagram, for example, was born out of the customer's need to not only take pictures, but also to post them or share them on a real time basis. So, similarly, we have the Facebooks and messengers and WhatsApp and Telegram. These are all basically prepared by the technopreneurs. So, technopreneurship is a new breed of entrepreneurship. It involves coming together of people who are intelligent, driven, creative, tech savvy, which is very important, passionate, and have an appetite for taking calculated risk. This is seldom a one man show, because you have a team of people. Some people are good in technology, some people are good in finance, some are good in marketing. So, this is like a bunch of people coming together basically. The success of the technopreneurship depends on how well the team functions together. Technology is an integral part of technopreneurship. The technopreneurs, they digitate. Digitate means they do the digitization, they do the disruption from the normal practices. They think big but start small, they strategize with tactics, they test prototypes, they implement, they sprint with success, and finally they scale up. Next is the social entrepreneurs. A social entrepreneur is someone who recognizes a social problem and uses the entrepreneurial principles to organize, create, and manage a business venture to bring the social change. So, there are three key components of a social entrepreneurship. There has to be a problem, there has to be a sustainable solution, and which brings about a social change. Let me take two case studies of social entrepreneurs. This is a case study of one doctor, Dr. Venkataswamy, who is from Chennai, from the south of India, and he basically set up an hospital. The name is Aravind Eye Hospital. Aravind is like a brand name, and you see the people who are poor, the people who are from the rural backgrounds, poor people who were becoming blind because they were not able to afford the eye surgeries. So, for them he is doing it absolutely free of cost. He says, if a Coca-Cola can sell billions of sodas and McDonald's can sell billions of burgers, why cannot Aravind sell millions of sight restoring operations? So, why cannot we restore the sight of those people who are becoming blind just because they do not have the money to pay for the eye surgeries? So, Dr. Venkataswamy retired in 1978 at the age of 57. He set up a hospital foundation in Chennai. He added a medical research foundation. He added an institute of community ophthalmology, and 3/4 of the surgeries, 75% of the surgeries are done absolutely free of cost. Dr. Venkataswamy designed a model where revenues from the paid service stream. So, the people who are able to pay, so those who have the money, so they are paying, so that money he is utilizing for doing for the free services. So, he designed a model where revenues from the paid service stream coupled with high efficiency could offset the cost of providing free service. It includes revenues from the patients who pay and income from the sale of Arabin's intraocular device units. Dr. Venkataswamy says, I do not run a business, I give people their sights. Secret of success is high efficiency and self-sufficiency. The housekeeping and the paramedical staff are mostly the girls recruited from the nearby villages. So, he is generating a lot of employment also, and the patients, they start coming in as early as 4 in the morning, no appointments, not even for the paid ones, and the hospital starts working at 5 in the morning from Monday to Saturday. This is the entire spectrum of the Aravind Eye Care Hospital. A lot of things he has set up right now. He says we want to go global. That means not only in India, but in the other countries also, like like neighboring countries like Bangladesh, Nepal, Bhutan, all these countries where the people are poor and who cannot afford to pay for their eye surgeries. So, for them it is all free of cost. He has got many awards like Padma Shri, the Helen Keller International Award, and his vision and leadership has got him accolades from around the world. This is the second case study of Professor Muhammad Yunus, who is a Nobel laureate. He is from Bangladesh and he set up a Grameen is like a rural Grameen bank. You see in Bangladesh, in fact now Bangladesh is coming up in a very big way, in a very nice way, but around 20 years back, 15-20 years back, it was a very poor country, and the rural women, they were very poor, and if they want to do a small business, a micro business or a tiny business, so they need the money. So when they go to a bank to take the money, the banks will always say no, because the banks want some security, and these ladies do not have any security, neither money nor any property, nothing is there. So the banks, they were refusing. So then Professor Muhammad Yunus, he said, okay, you come to me, you take the money from me, take the money from me, no security is required, just take the money, start your business, and then start repaying me the money. So that was the basic model. So he was honored with the Nobel Peace Prize in 2006. He helped poor rural women of Bangladesh to stand on their own feet by setting up micro enterprises. Previously he was a professor of economics, and he has written books also, like Banker of the Poor, Grameen Bank. Grameen, as I said, is like a rural bank, and creating a world without the poverty. Now let us go to the next part of my presentation, which is the need for entrepreneurship promotion. Why do we need to promote entrepreneurship? There are two reasons. The first is to reduce unemployment or the underemployment. There is a lot of unemployment in the country, lot of underemployment, more than the unemployment, there is underemployment, and just to remove that, we want to promote entrepreneurship. The second is to promote the economic development of the country. In fact, if we talk of the poverty exists everywhere, and it is a big challenge. If we see our country, in our country we have around more than 20% of the population which is below the poverty line. If they are not able to earn, let us say, $2 per day. I was in the Philippines for 3 years, and there around 40% people are below the poverty line. So you see, there is a lot of poverty in this all Asia Pacific region, and it is a big challenge. The United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, they aim to eradicate extreme poverty and the hunger, and the poverty has got a very vicious cycle. You can see on your screens also, like we have a low average income, the income is very low of some people. So when income is very low, there is a low savings and low investments, and then it leads to low pace of capital formation. When you do not have any capital, you cannot buy the latest machinery, so you have the old machinery, and it again leads to the low productivity, and then it again leads to the low average income. It has got a vicious cycle, and this is a vicious cycle of poverty, illiteracy, low technology, and rapid population growth, which is very rampant in Asia Pacific region. So we have a poverty. Since there is a poverty, there is a low level of education, there is a low level of literacy, there is a low level of skills. Now when people do not have any skills or education, they cannot use the technology, there are hurdles in the use of technology. In addition, we have a rapid population growth, and then there is an inadequate output and food, and then again there is a poverty. So this has got a very vicious cycle of poverty, illiteracy, low technology, and population growth, and we need to break this cycle by promoting entrepreneurship. So what could be the solution? The solution could be, if we can promote entrepreneurship or self-employment in the technical and vocational education, that can act as a panacea for poverty alleviation. In fact, if we look to the contribution of the SMEs, the small and medium enterprises, because the basic purpose of promoting entrepreneurship is to promote SMEs or the MSMEs, micro, small and medium enterprises, and these industries, they are contributing in a very big way. If we look at this slide, they provide high employment opportunities at low capital investment. That means by putting in less amount of money in these industries, you can generate more employment. So the same amount of money invested in the large scale sector will have less employment generation. The same amount of money invested in the MSME sector will generate more employment. They harness the local resources and local entrepreneurship. They provide balanced economic and regional development, because you can set up an MSME in any part of the country. So the country as a whole, all the cities, towns, rural areas, everything is getting developed. It helps in reducing unrest and social tension amongst the youth, because the youth who are unemployed, if they can start their own businesses, their own enterprises, so they will be busy, and it will remove their unrest and social tension also. And it creates more innovations in the enterprises. We have research evidences to show that the small and medium sector has more capacity to have more innovations as compared to the large scale sector. This is the contribution of the SMEs in different countries of the Asia Pacific region. You can see this, I have taken a lot of countries like Hong Kong, Japan, Malaysia, Philippines, Korea, Singapore, Taiwan and Thailand, and the SMEs are more than 95%, approximately 98 to 98%. That means, the major chunk is the SME sector and large sector is very less, and the employment generation is more than 70% in all the cases. So, there are 140 million SMEs, that means 14 crore SMEs, some small and medium enterprises in 130 countries, which employ 65% of the total labor force. So, a majority of the industrial labor goes to the SME sector, not to the large scale sector. In the Asia Pacific region, the SMEs contribute 30 to 60% of the GDP and 35% of the region's export. So, this sector is very important, and the prime purpose of promoting entrepreneurship is to promote the SME or the MSME sector. Now, let us go to the last portion of my presentation, which is on the Startup India and Stand Up India campaigns by the Government of India. Startup India is a flagship initiative of the Government of India. It is intended to build a strong ecosystem that is conducive for the growth of startups businesses, to drive sustainable economic growth and generate large scale employment opportunities. The Government of India through this initiative aims to empower startups to grow through the innovation. Now, what is a startup? Startup means an entity or a business incorporated or registered in India, and there are 5 conditions. The first condition is not before 10 years, not prior to 10 years. So, if a business has been set up within the past 10 years, it can be recognized as a startup. The second is with annual turnover not exceeding rupees 100 crores in any preceding financial year. The third is it should be incorporated as either a private limited company or a registered partnership firm or a LLP, limited liability partnership. The fourth condition is it should not be formed by splitting up or reconstruction of a business already in existence. So, that is not allowed. And the fifth is, which is the most important, is it should be working towards the innovation, development or improvement of the products or processes or services, or the enterprise must have a high potential of employment generation or wealth creation. Now, the next is if you have a startup, what benefits you can get. For availing the various benefits, an entity would be required to be recognized as a startup by applying on a Startup India mobile app or a portal. So, we have got a portal. So, either on the portal or on the mobile app, you can register first yourself, and then you can get benefit of all these schemes. The benefits provided to the recognized startups under the Startup India initiative are: number 1 is self certification. So, a startup can self certify and comply under 3 environmental and 6 labor laws. That means, for 3 environmental laws and for 6 labor laws, you can self certify that you are conforming to the required standards. Second is the tax exemption, income tax exemption for a period of 3 consecutive years, an exemption on capital and investments. The third benefit is easy winding of the company. In case you want to wind up the company, then within 90 days, that means within 3 months, you can wind up the company under the Insolvency and Bankruptcy Code 2016. The next benefit is startup patent application and IP protection. Under this, you can get fast track of patent application, and you can get up to 80% rebate in filing of the patents. Next is easier public procurement norms. So, there is an exemption from requirement of earnest money deposit and exemption from the turnover and experience requirements in government tenders. And the last is SIDBI funds. SIDBI has got a fund, it is known as SIDBI fund of funds. In case you want to get the money under this fund, you must be registered as a startup on the portal or on the mobile app. I have put some questions and their answers also. The first question is, can an existing entity register as a startup? The answer is yes. An existing entity that meets the criteria can visit the Startup India portal or the mobile app and get itself recognized for various benefits. The second question, what is the time frame for existing entity to obtain certificate of recognition as a startup? This certificate of recognition would be issued typically within the 2 working days upon successful submission of the application. So, it takes only 2 to 3 days only in getting a certificate. And the last question is, would a one person company, just one person is working in the company, be eligible to avail benefits under this Startup India initiative? The answer is again yes, one person companies are eligible to avail benefits under this Startup India initiative. And the last I think slide is on the Stand Up India, that was Startup India, this is Stand Up India. Stand Up India scheme facilitates bank loans between rupees 10 lakhs and rupees 1 crore to at least one scheduled caste or scheduled tribe borrower and at least one woman per bank branch for setting up an enterprise. This enterprise may be in manufacturing, services or in the trading sector. In case of non-individual enterprises where we have more than one person basically, at least 51% of the shareholding and controlling the stake should be held either by a SC/ST or by a women entrepreneur. So, I think that is all. So, thank you so much. For further details you can go to the e-contents which have been given in this higher module. So, they are much more elaborate. Thank you so much.